Welcome to Courageous Conversation with Theresa W. Gamble, powered by Concierge Resource Professional Consultant.
Greetings and welcome, everyone. This is Theresa W. Gamble, your host of Courageous Conversations. We are back at it again, but this time we're handling issues and matters that impact the family and impact the community. So I apologize for our gap in our episodes, but I've been doing some voter education, voter registration, and getting galvanizing our community in Jacksonville, Florida. But we still been on the grind covering and capturing these stories that mainstream media don't cover. But today, from the month of July, we're going to talk about family matters. And this is an issue that is touch and go. Some people will talk about it, some people won't talk about it, but it is a major conversation we need to have in our Black and Brown communities. So today we have an amazing expert, Miss Tina Noble. You all have heard her last year from her savvy credit strategies, from her independent skincare consultant. But I told y'all this woman is a jack of all trades, but this lane that she is operating in is so much needed, because you cannot be independent beauty consultant. You cannot have savvy credit strategists if you're not among the land of the living to operate and function in them roles. So this morning, we're going to talk about several series of questions that comes up when we doing end of life planning. A lot of people don't like to talk about death because so many of us have been around it so much till it's traumatic. But we must have the conversation. Why? Because of our children. They need to know what to do when we're not in place to take care of those responsibilities they are so accustomed and used to us doing. So welcome, Ms. Tina Noble. Thank you so much for doing this episode, this series, because I know some personal things, but I'm not the expert. But you are, from watching you and listening to you, and your passion about making sure Black and Brown community members, a matter of fact, anyone of all walks of life, to make sure they have the tools necessary to make the right decisions for their family. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Theresa. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And let me just say, you are a beast, okay? You are out here giving it to the community. And I love you. God placed you in my life for a reason. I love being centered around people that think like me, that are out there trying to make our communities better. And I just love like what you do. So just continue to stay in God's purpose, because he is definitely working through your life.
Thank you so much, Tina. Blessings to you. Appreciate it. So we're going to dive and jump right in. Our first question for the series that we're going to focus on specifically on right now is, do your children know what to do if you die tomorrow?
Oh my goodness, Theresa. I grew up in a time where kids were to be seen and not heard. Kids didn't know grown folks' business, right?
Right.
And all of that stuff. We just knew we learned what we could from watching and eavesdropping, right?
Right.
But nowadays, because this matters and it touches us in such a different way than it did when we were growing up, it is very important to teach our children, talk to our children about what's going on in the family. You really have to. They know anyway, right? So you really have to include them in some of the decisions that are being made on behalf of the family, and that includes life planning. You have to do it. So many people I run into who, a family member passes and no one in the family knows if there's any life insurance. No one knows if there's a will. Well, mama told me that she was going to give me this and that. Well, people just don't understand. If it's not set and etched in stone, then word of mouth does not mean anything. So it's very important that we teach our children, because guess what? We replicate what we are taught, or we replicate what we've seen growing up. And if we don't see our families planning, doing things in the structured way, then when we grow up, if we're not, blessed enough to run into somebody to show us how to do that, then we're going to follow the same patterns. And it's a lot of bad habits that are, carried on generation to generation. So we want to break those bad habits right now, right now. And we have to talk to our people. We have to talk to our children. We have to include them. We have to have family discussions. I don't care if it's a single parent and a one child. You have to talk to them. It's not you trying to be their friend. It's you trying to let your children know what to do in case something happened to me, daddy, one of the breadwinners of the house. Who do they go and talk to? What are certain things in place in a certain area in the house? Kids need to know that. Kids need to know that. It's very important.
That's true. So what if parents, they feel like, well, they're not smart enough to know that, or they don't want them to get access to the information before time?
You know what? When is it before time? Kids are learning things before time anyway, right? With some of the stuff, the nonsense that they're trying to force on our children inside the schools, they're learning things anyway when their innocent minds aren't even thinking about things like that. So no, this is something we have to start it. There's 3 ways to start the conversation. Okay. You ask the important
Okay, let's
questions.
talk about it. Let's talk about it.
We're gonna dive deep,
Mhm.
right? So you have to
Yeah.
ask important questions, right? So what do they do if I die? What would do you do if I died today or tomorrow, right? There's certain things that if we have our life insurance policies that's hit like in a certain place, then we need to let, if not all the children, at least one, the one that we think is the most responsible, right? Let them know where mama keeps all of the important papers. That's the passcodes to bank accounts, the wills, the list of important contacts, right? All of the information to get into different things that we pay monthly for bills, the insurance for the house or the cars, or if we get deeds, we got to know where all of that stuff is. It's like, just put them in place. Who do they contact? You got to give them the person, especially if they're under the age of 18. They have to know, if something happened to my mom or my dad, who do I go and contact? Do I contact my granny? Do I contact my auntie? Do I contact someone outside of the family? Kids don't know. And when you're going through a trauma like that, then you're not going to be thinking with your right set of mind, because you're just thinking, you go into survival mode real quick when you head into trauma.
Mhm.
And trauma is anything that is devastating or unexpected that happens to you, right? So it could be an accident. My husband passed, he had a stroke, right? What do I do? Do we know the doctor's information? Do we have the what is it, the insurance, the health insurance information? You have to have all of that stuff, and you have to sit down with your family and you have to discuss it. Who do they trust? Right? Do they trust the family, friends? Now, that's big important, right? Because kids grow up knowing who mom and dad are close to, who they talk to, but do they know that they can trust those people? you know so kids need to know. Put out a little list. I remember growing up, they would have by the phone the emergency contact list, right?
Yeah.
You had
Mhm.
911, you had 0, and then you had, if it was your neighbor or your grandmother or your auntie or somebody, but they had the list written right next to the phone of who you should call in case of an emergency. We need to get back to that.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. So let me back up a minute. Let me ask you something. When you said about putting things in order, because you made me thought about my grandfather on my mom's side. He had a safety deposit box with all that stuff in it. So in the event that something happens at the house or the home, or the transitioning and moving, or people ransacking the house when people die, because I've heard of that, where when the main matriarch or the patriarch done passed away, the children just go through and just ramsack the whole place, and they will have backup copies of all that information in the bank in the safety deposit box.
Yep. So that's another thing. If there is a safety deposit box, and when I was with my husband and his grandmother, and then her son passed away within 6 months of each other, right? They had safety deposit boxes. Usually when you get a safety deposit box, you have 2 keys that they give you. So you get one that you keep on your person or you put up for a safekeeping, and then you give one to somebody else that you trust, right? So that's something else that needs to be discussed. Now, of course, they charge you to have that safe deposit box. So what a lot of people do is they purchase those little safes and they keep it in the back of their closet or in their room somewhere, right? People got to know the combo.
Yeah.
You know, so that goes on that list with the codes, the passcodes, the how to get into, you know, their email systems, how to get into, you know, the bank ATM codes and things like that. Like you have to, they just have to do it. You have to do it. But you have to have, if you have those items put up, it might not be in the safe. It might just be in one of those fireproof envelopes that they have. And you put your, you know, your safe documents in there. But you have to kind of lead a map for people to be able to know where to find those important documents. They matter. It really matters.
That's good, because you made me thought about, for hurricane season here in Florida, they have the newscasters always tell us, you know, give us a list of important documents you need to pack with your hurricane survival kit. And it's almost similar to that, even the list and the names of the medication in the event that your parents become incapacitated. One of my former guest speaker, Elaine, she talked about that with the advanced directive. In other words, writing out your final wishes, how you want things to be carried out. So those are some of the things that you bring to mind. And then even with the siblings, the children, picking that designated one, you know, what will be the best for me? I will pick that designated sibling and also an adult with that sibling, because you speak of the trauma experiences. So would that be something to help those parents prepare their children in the event they die today or tomorrow?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can never be too strategic when you're planning it. Now, let me say this, and a lot of people don't understand this and don't know. You can have a written will, right? And a written will just basically directs what properties or personal properties that you want to go to whom, right?
Right.
But what people also need to understand is when you're dealing with a death and you have a written will, whether it's just handwritten and notarized by somebody, or whether you've actually had an attorney put it into place for you. But one of the other things that is vitally important is to also have a trust in place, because a will can be contested. So I might choose to put my middle child in place or give her advanced directive powers of attorney for different things in my life if something should go wrong. However, my oldest child or my youngest child can always go into a court, get them an attorney, and they can contest that, right? So that's when it becomes important to have a trust in place, because a trust cannot be, a trust supersedes an actual will. So a trust, the court can't go in. You can't go into probate court and destroy a trust, but you can go into probate court and destroy a will or hold it up.
So is a trust expensive to institute than a will?
You know what? Depending on who you use, the cost varies, right? So there are some people that might do it. A lot of times you can go and get pro bono work done. You can go to your local bar association and find an attorney that's willing to do it pro bono. That means for free, right? That's
Right.
them doing community service and giving community service back. Or
Mhm.
sometimes you might be able to find an attorney that can work on a sliding scale. I know with the company that I'm with, we actually have something that's in place. You pay like maybe 20 something dollars a month for it, but you're actually able to have access to attorneys throughout the US for not only just any type of legal problems that you may have from small going up to big, but you can also tap into that attorney to put your will in place. I know with the company that I have, if you get a life insurance policy through this company and you actually have that program in place that you're paying into, they will do your wills for free because it automatically comes in there. And then if you want a trust, it's a little bit more money, but what they will do is give you an actual discount on it. So you can actually go and get the trust done for little to nothing. I want to say it's like maybe about a 70% discount. And I could be wrong on that, so don't quote me, but I know it's a very great discount that they will give you to go ahead and put your trust in place. You figure you have your will, then you have your last will and testament, you have your living will, and then you have like your healthcare directives and things of that nature. So usually when you go to an attorney and they're putting your will in place, they'll usually put those three things into place for you. And then the trust is something separate, but again, in a trust, you can outline everything. In a trust, you can actually outline how you want your will to be distributed, or if you have life insurance policies or any other assets, mutual funds or things like that, and you don't want your children to get it at such a young age, you can direct in there how it's distributed out to them. And they
Okay.
have to go by that. So, there's different things that you can do, but it's very important to have it in place because you don't want your kids or the family, anybody could come in and destroy it. Like,
Right.
right? They'll
Mhm.
sit there. If you have parents that are dealing with Alzheimer's or
Dementia.
dementia, things like that. You can get people to come into the family, they'll go into a probate court, they'll get an attorney and they'll try to say that you took advantage of them when they know that their mind was kind of going in and out. So all of that stuff matters. And even if they are dealing with diseases like that, there's a certain timing that you can go and have things put into place, and that part won't be contested. It's more so towards the end of that, or when
Right.
it gets really aggressive, that then it can be kind of questioned. So and I've seen it happen, with families. I've, real estate background for over 21 years. I have dealt with families that have had to deal with that. And it's heartbreaking. I've dealt with it in my own personal life with my husband's family, when his mother and not his mother, but well, yeah, when his mother too, but when his father and grandmother passed away, and we had, you know, strangers coming into the house ransacking it, right?
Right.
Uh Girlfriends, of the dad coming in the house, ransacking it, taking furs, taking all kind of things that were supposed to be passed on down to the, family. And when we finally get there, we're left with whatever is left to go through and sort through. But it happens. People get greedy in a time of death. People get very greedy, very
Right.
greedy. You really see the true side of people when death comes upon a family. So
That's true. So with that being said, a lot of people, with the increase of the housing crisis that's going on and expenses is going up,
yeah.
what is the affordable way for families to institute these policies and these protections that you're speaking about? Because that's an issue right now where people having to choose, well, I got to keep a roof over my head while I'm living, and I just don't have the budget to take care of something that I'm not going to be here to benefit. what do you speak and what do you say to those individuals?
Something is better than nothing. Okay.
Mhm.
So if you can't afford to legally go and have an attorney, again, contact your local bar association, because there are attorneys that actually will do this pro bono or on a sliding scale. That sliding scale means that it works with your budget, so that it's not so devastatingly expensive for you. You do the crisis right now is horrible, right? You got to choose between putting gas in your car, putting food on your table, right? Keeping
Right.
a roof over your head, or this or that. And again, that's why it's important to talk to your children. Let them know what's going on with the family. They see it anyway. They're living in the household with you. They're experiencing it with you. And I think, and I'm talking to myself when I say this too, right? Because of how I grew up, and in the time that I grew up, I knew nothing about my mother's personal business. I didn't know how much she made. I didn't know if there was money in the bank. I didn't know anything, right? And it wasn't until I became an adult, and then she started confiding in me certain things, or having me look at certain things, then that I realized, oh man, my mom really did have this going on or that going on. But it's important. You have to talk to your children. Just because you talk to them doesn't mean they're grown or they're in grown folks' business. It means that you see them as a human being
That's
that is
good.
there in the trenches with you, going through the same things that you're going through. And trust me, they will respect you more if you talk to them and let them know what's going on, and actually give them a voice. Our children they are very smart. And sometimes we be so stuck and fixated on the adult problems and the solutions to those problems, that a lot of times children will have a very simple solution to the problem if we just listen. I've had my children give me, solutions that I never even thought about, because I was thinking about it from an adult perspective instead of taking it back to the basics.
Right.
Taking it back to the basics. But it's so important. We have to start these conversations. We must. Our children, they're our future.
Yeah, you're
They
right.
are our future. We're dependent on them, whether it is for them to lead the world, or whether it is for them to take care of us and when we get older, right? In our older age. And if they don't know how to start, then that's on us.
Right.
That's on us.
I agree, and you're very true and correct. You made me thought about some components about having the parent conferences, and you some of your children may be no longer living with you. They may be adults, but we have all this technology now where you can have virtual family meetings. And
Yep.
it shouldn't be about when something is going wrong or when somebody died. If that relationship is built and cultivated and maintained when those incidents happen, then we will be ready for that. So with that being said, Tina, we've talked about, creating an emergency contact list. We talked about, making sure the parents or the adults in the family let the children know, designate one responsible sibling to know where the important papers are. So I know from peeping logons and passwords, what do you suggest how the matriarch or the patriarch of the family document that information, those usernames and passwords, to get onto digital accounts, especially since this recent pandemic, everything went online? What do you suggest how a person log or keep track of that's accessible for their children?
You know what? I'm old school with it, right? Okay, so even though technology is here, I do it for myself. I have in my phone where it has in the notes section, and I code it. but I have it in there, right? So I have accounts for the different credit cards. I have the account numbers, the logins, the passwords. When I changed the passwords, I updated in there. And it's just because I'm getting old and I just really can't remember all that stuff. But I found it very, very helpful. Now, old school, write that stuff out. Remember how we used to have phone books, address books, and we would write
Uh-huh.
out everybody's number and name in that address book?
Right.
Get like that and put that in the safe with your personal documents, because and make sure your kids have the combination to the safe. I can't stress that even more. Make sure they have that. You don't need nobody getting a crowbar trying to, jack open the safe. But give them that information, have it written down somewhere. And let me say this as well. You know, it's important to talk to our children. If you have more than one child, usually if something happens to the matriarch or patriarch or both, a lot of times, depending on if the oldest child just made 17 or 18, maybe even be in the college years, right?
Mm-hmm.
If something happens, you see a lot of them trying to take on the responsibility of caring for their siblings, because they don't
Right.
want their siblings to go into the system, and they don't want their siblings to be taken, separated, right?
Right.
So that's another reason why we have to get back to this. And that's another reason why it could probably be done, but make sure that they know who they can go to and trust. Like you said, that's an adult as well. Make sure you check out that adult. You want somebody that's responsible, that knows how to take care of their own bills, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because you don't want anybody that's going to be caring for your children. And if you're leaving a will behind, right, and that those children get a large sum of money, you don't want whoever is over them, the administrator of the estate, or whoever is going to be their trustee, if it's a case with minors, you don't want them to run through those the children's money. That money is left for them for college, for when they get older, and things like that. So you want to make sure that you vet the person that you leave in charge of, or that you leave to be the director of, in conjunction with your children. You have to. It's so important. It's very important. Um, that one, I want to say that. Also, talk to all of your children and let them know why. Each of our children have a different strength, and each of them deals with situations differently. Now, I know for like me and my husband, we both want to be cremated, right? Because funerals are very, very expensive. We don't want to put that burden on our family, and we want to be cremated, and we are actually going to be paying for our cremations in advance. So that's money that they don't have to worry about when they get, when they cash out on the life insurance policies. But in your will and in your trust, you direct that in there, because a lot of people, I got one child like, no, I want to do this. Well, when you get children that won't respect your final wishes, put that in writing as well. Make that part of the will, make that part of the trust. That way you'll know before you passed away that your wishes will be carried on the way that you want as well. So all of that stuff comes in there. All of that stuff is part of that. And as we learn things, we teach that on, pass it down to our children.
That's
You know,
good. That's good. I've seen some individuals leave video instructions along
yep.
with the written will. So that's one of the things that I will highly recommend, especially if it's difficult for you to document what your wishes
Mm-hmm.
are,
Mm-hmm.
to have that, either that attorney or have a Zoom recording like we're doing right now,
Oh yeah.
to be able to record your wishes and have it sent to that designated attorney or that responsible family member to play, so that way they hear directly from you, even though you're not among the land of the living.
That's good. I didn't even think about the Zoom. So you're absolutely right. That's an ineffective way to make sure that it gets done. Like you said. Yep, absolutely. It's free.
Right, right. So Tina, I am enjoying this conversation. I love the part when you were saying how some siblings, they feel like they have to take on that matriarch and patriarch role. But how important is, even though this is the administrative task of Family Matters, my focus that I want to express is making sure that some of the children may require counseling, brief counseling. And I guess I've never heard anybody do this, but making sure that a counselor is on board or a part of the team to help our children navigate through this process.
That's good. That's good. Absolutely. Especially if they're, even I would say, well, shoot, I see adult children that need the counseling too. You know, it just really
Right,
depends on how close you were with your parents.
right,
But definitely, you know, that's another one that you can, you know, counselors, therapists, I'm an advocate for it. Okay,
right.
I am a true advocate for it. And I think when they are minors going through things like that, I think you can probably search databases and you can find some that work again for free, right?
Mhm.
Maybe not on a one-on-one, but maybe you can find a group session for them. And sometimes groups are good too, because it lets you know that you're not by yourself. You're not alone. You're not the only one going through this. And it gives you someone else. It gives you other people's stories to listen to and helps you lean on someone else. So there's group therapy sessions. There are individual therapy sessions. I know if they are minors, then you can reach out to your local, like DFACS or, you know, Department of Children Family Services. You can find grief counselors through them. You don't have to, you know, your child doesn't have to be in the system to utilize those programs and services. I want to put that out there,
That's
you know.
good.
So but yeah, you can, and you can find a lot of them, and you want to find someone that works with children, that's good with children, and someone that listen to your children. Everybody isn't for everybody, right?
Right.
Even as an adult, we go to therapists. Some we connect with, some we don't, you know. So listen to your children. If you do give them a counselor of sorts, if they're just not feeling them, then find them someone else. Maybe they're just not connecting. Maybe
That's
they're
true.
just not resonating with them. So find them someone else as well.
That's good. I want to put this information right here while we're talking about counseling and therapy. In Jacksonville, Florida, the Jacksonville Urban League is having a 988 awareness town hall on July 20th from 6 to 7 p.m. And it's where actual that's the 911 number for mental health crises. So instead of calling 911 for your first responders, the police, fire rescue, they have 988. It's the mental health 911 number. So if someone is having a traumatic event or an experience or a mental health crisis, or you can't reach them, that is the number you will call on your phone. It's 988. You want to learn more about this, and you don't have to be in Jacksonville. You can tune in from wherever you are to see if that service is offered in your area. But they're the Jacksonville Urban League Center for Advocacy and Social Justice is hosting a 988 awareness town hall, and it's going to be July 20th from 6 to 7 p.m. via Zoom. And the executive director of NAMI, which is a free mental health counseling agency, and the president of Florida Mental Health Advocacy Coalition is the speakers. So that way you can ask your questions. So I want to drop that in while we were talking about counseling, because it can get stressful trying to handle the affairs of your parents as a child. It
Yes,
can
it
be
can.
stressful as the parents trying to do this planning for your children, because you want to be around to see them live long life. But we have to take the time, press pause, my favorite phrase, press pause from our day to day and sit down and write this stuff out or talk it out. If you're not a big proponent of writing and, you know, it's just too tedious, you have an auto recorder on your phone. record it on your voice recorder on your phone, get on Zoom and record your wishes out, write it out on a piece of paper, text message it to yourself, or put it on your notepad so you can start. Tina talked about to take care of your children. You've already done your due diligence. You already know who and what you need to have in place. And when Tina was talking about how the house get ransacked, this is why the family needs to be involved before the matriarch and the patriarch pass away. So that way they can seize control of the real estate assets, changing locks, making sure it's secured until the family has time to go through those property things. So I'm gonna get back to Tina, but I wanted to drop that in when she mentions that about the new mental health emergency number 988. So they're getting ready to execute that in Florida. I don't know if that's gonna be in existence anywhere else. So I encourage you to research and investigate to see. But Tina, to wrap up, what resources or what is the next steps for those parents and those adult children to start having that conversation with their family? In other words, what resources can you suggest or recommend for them to acquire so they can be equipped to be able to have this conversation?
Talk with your whoever handles your life insurance. Your life insurance agent should be your friend. Okay. Your life insurance agent should be the one that's going to help guide you through what needs to be done. Your life insurance agent should be the one that help you and your family start this conversation, the important questions that needs to be asked, even about life insurance itself. Your life insurance agent needs to be that person. Like, I can't stress it enough. You can have your attorneys if you know friends that are attorneys, or if you know attorneys, that could be another one. But your life insurance agent is the one. And you got to make sure that people, since COVID-19 didn't show a lot of people anything. It showed
Right.
some people something. It showed you that life is precious, it's not guaranteed, and it left a lot of families in a conundrum of not knowing what to do next, the next steps, right?
Yes.
And this is why this is important now. We
Right.
still have people out here who don't have life insurance outside of their jobs,
Right.
right? It's very important to get life insurance outside of your jobs. And when you have life insurance, you need to make sure that you have the right life insurance. You don't want to be paying for life insurance for X amount of years for you to pass away and then to find out that there's no money in there to bury your loved ones.
Wow.
And that means that you've had the wrong type of life insurance that you've been paying into for some years. We hear horror stories over here, horror stories. And unfortunately, it's nothing that we can do. People that have life insurance plans in place, if it gets to a point where your finances get low or they get funky, right? And you can't take on that full payment, contact your life insurance agent. And what they should be able to do is get your payments lowered. You might have to go with a lower premium, right? So a lower amount of coverage to be able to get that down. But you never want to let your life insurance lapse or stop.
That's good.
Because when it lapses or stops is exactly when you're going to need it. And we've seen it. You have to get your children insured. You have to get them. With our company, you can have your children insured up until the age of 25. One rider takes care of up to 10 children and grandchildren. One rider. So you're only paying for one. Other companies, you got to pay for each, you got to get a different rider and pay for each individual child. Our company, one rider takes care of up to 10 children and grandchildren that are living with you, that are in your household. So if the adult children can't take care of it, then insure your grandchildren. Insure, you have to do this, people. You have to do this. Yeah, we think that the children are young and they got their whole life, but we see how many times have we turned on the news and we saw a stray bullet hit a child that's in the back seat,
Yeah. Or sleep in their own bed in the
sleeping
house.
in their own bed. It happens. So we can't take it for granted. We can't take
Right.
it for granted. And then you have to go and see GoFundMe's or fundraisers. I mean, I've had this in my family, and it's like people know I am here to help them. I'll do affordable life insurance policy. If your policy is not affordable for you in your budget, then you need to go talk to somebody else.
That's
We
good.
understand you're trying to help friends and family that's over here, but if it's not affordable for your budget, and again, affordability, you got to make sure it's the right type of policy for you. Accidental AD&D, that's not insurance. That's based off of you dying in an accident, and the DD is dismemberment. Accident, death, and dismemberment. That's what that means. That's not life insurance. That's an added rider that if you die a certain way, then you get paid out on that policy. That's not
Wow.
just a regular, you gotta, and again, you gotta talk to your insurance agents. You have to. You
So
have
what
to.
so what if the our listeners and our viewers, they don't have an insurance agent? All they rely on is just the coverage that they were told to get at work based on a coworker recommendation.
And that's fine. Work is extra, right? Because it's cheap, or a lot of times they'll pay for you, and if you want to add your family members on, then paying a little bit extra. So when I hear people say, oh yeah, I only pay $10 a month, well, right then and there, that tells me that it's either through the job or it's an accidental death and dismemberment policy. So it's like it's not something that is going to probably be enough to even bury you,
Mm,
if you can even get anything from it, right?
right.
So you have to, if you don't know, then you need to reach out to me. You need to reach out to me and contact me, and let's sit down and let's talk. It doesn't take any time. It doesn't cost you any money, but you got to talk about it. I can give you some quotes. I can direct you. If people are not healthy, then we just talk. We just have to talk. Just so
So
reach out to me if you don't have anybody.
that's good. So Miss Tina, let me ask you a question. So what if those individuals, they don't know how to start this conversation with their family or with their children? Is that something you're able to help them do?
Yes, I have taken upon, when we put this series together, Miss Teresa,
Mhm.
I actually said that what I'm going to start doing for all of my insurance, all of my clients, I'm going to give them, it's like it's kind of like a outline, right?
Mhm.
And it's kind of how to get started with the conversations. How, it's 3 ways to do the conversation. It gives you questions about your life insurance, and actually, other different things that you don't think about. And I'm gonna start sending that out to each of my clients. So if you want one as well, then reach out to me, and let's get this conversation started, and I can definitely give this to you. Like I said, it's free, and it definitely gives you a template on what to start discussing and how to get it done. And also, before we get off of here, take it back old school as well. Show your children how to pay bills.
There you go.
Show your children how to pay bills. Back in the day, they used to, the daddy would come home, he'll have his paycheck after he cashed it. He'll sit down with the kids and he'll put the bills in front of them and show them how to pay bills. Show your children how to go and deposit some money into a bank account.
That's good. That's
Okay.
good. Hmm.
Any little bank account. I think you can start a bank account for kids for free, or you might have to put $20 in there or something like that. But get them used to money. Technology is taking these kids away from money, the feel of money, how to recognize paper and coins, and how to, like, they don't even do checkbooks anymore, right? Because it's all about swiping a card. But how you gonna swipe if you don't know what's on there? You got to learn how to go back to the basics of balancing, budgeting, and knowing how to do this. And you have to teach your children this. So you got to get back to the basics. We do. Technology dumbs us down.
I agree. I agree. Now that's something that me and my husband have always did with our children growing up. We taught them how to buy things from the store, look at the price of what they want to buy versus how much money they holding in their hand. Do they have enough to purchase what they want to buy? We also, even me, when we would take them to the doctor, how to present their insurance card to the doctor's office to pay for their office visit and to pay their copay. So that's another thing you have to, make sure, if something happened to mom and dad or the matriarch or patriarch of the family, will the insurance coverage continue if you are a child that is sickly? If you on prescription medication. Also, we showed our, children how to be able to, like you said, go to the bank and make a bank deposit, go to the ATM to learn how to withdraw money at the bank if they, with the debit card. So I agree with you, Tina, on that. We must get back to the basics so our children will know what to do so they won't trust a stranger
That part.
that they giving access to monies you've worked for to set aside for them to turn around and steal it from them, and they left with nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Our children need to know. They need to
Yeah.
know who we trust around us. And if it's people that you don't talk to anymore because of certain things that's probably transpired,
The children need to know about that.
they need to know.
They need to know about that disagreement, that person violated their trust. So again, it goes back to your point you said earlier, that emergency contact list with the phone numbers, even the address, the living address where they live at. And the email address, because they may have to go visit. So Miss Tina, I kick off of this first series, do your children know what to do if you die tomorrow? That's our first series that we focused on, and we hope we triggered and gave you some things to think about. But if you're struggling, if you can't get this conversation going, this is just too difficult for you because of past traumatic experiences, Miss Tina has developed a contact form that will be in the description of this podcast and this YouTube channel for you to click on and privately enter your information, and Miss Tina will contact you directly. But if you don't want to wait and if you don't want to fill out that form, Miss Tina, how do our listeners and viewers get in touch with you to get on your calendar?
They can actually reach out to me. My email is tinanoble@primerica.com. That's TINANOBLE at Primerica, PRIMERICA.com. Or they can contact me at area code 773-968-6002.
Repeat that phone number one more time, Miss Tina.
773-968-6002. If you text me, text the word family matters. And then that way I will know that you're coming from this series.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Miss Tina. So before we get off and sign off for this first episode, what is your call to action for our parents and our guardians for today?
Call to action to the parents and guardians is put those children first. We have to start talking to them on their level. We don't have to talk to them on an adult level. We talk to them on the level that they can understand. Okay. But you got to start doing it. Got to get those conversations in place.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for listening. I know this is a tough conversation, but we must have it more often than not. If this pandemic has not taught us anything, that we need to have those conversations. We need to have those important papers in place because of so many of our family members have passed away. We've lost over 1 million people from this pandemic. And how many of you probably heard stories or saw posts where people who didn't have insurance coverage, or they're setting up GoFundMe accounts, and children that are left as orphans or foster kids, and someone else, probably complete strangers, are having to raise them. So let's do the responsible thing and make sure our children, our legacy, our future is protected. We have gun violence is on the rise even the more. And just like Tina mentioned, stray bullets does not have a name. It will land where it will land. And it could be you, it could be your spouse, it could be your children, whether they're young or they're adult children. They may live with you, they may not live with you, but we have to do the responsible thing. We cannot expect the government or legislators to dictate and tell us what to do. This is our family. This is in our home, in our private space. And we have the opportunity right now to dictate the terms, how you want your children to be taken care of, whether you get to see them grow up to be adults or see them have children. Be responsible, take action, eliminate some of that unnecessary spending, those wants, and let's put that want money on this need, and that's getting life insurance for your family. So don't forget, check the comments to click on the Google form to request to speak and contact with Tina so you can give her an insight of what you're looking for, what you need help. But if you cannot wait, Miss Tina, give them your number one more time to call or text.
773-968-6002 and text Family Matters, and I'll get back to you.
All right, you've heard it here on Courageous Conversation. So every Friday for the month of July, we are going to be talking about some of those questions and conversations we need to be having, giving you some resources and some ideas to put in place. If you have an insurance agent, if you have an attorney, it's time for you to revisit them, not when you have an emergency. This is called proactive planning. So we are pushing for you to be proactive. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned for next Friday as we continue the Family Matters Conversation series. Thanks again, Miss Tina.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
It's 2022, boo. If you'd like to learn how to build a business that'll create generational wealth for you and your family, if you'd like to gain knowledge in a recession-proof industry, obtain state and federal financial services licenses, and make more money, then text the code COURAGE to 470-531-5770. Again, that's COURAGE, COURAGE, to 470-531-5770. You'll be glad that you did.
You've been listening to Courageous Conversation with Theresa W. Gamble. Courageous Conversation is powered by Concierge Resource Professional Consultant.